Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, bringing you a look at the Georgia Bulldogs tonight with Savannah Lee Richardson from Bulldog Illustrated. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for the very best in college football coverage. We bring on the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the industry, and you also have to get stuck with some analysis from me as well. The audio versions you can find on Google Play, Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher. Savannah, how you doing tonight?
Good. Just hanging out by the pool, enjoying this weather. It's finally stopped being rainy, and then all the pollen the last couple weeks. I mean, it's still pretty terrible, but it was finally a good day by the pool.
Yeah, that is always a good time. Kicking into summer mode. Good stuff there. But we're going to take you back to spring because we need to hear from you on the Dogs' performance in the spring. So, based on going through 15 sessions of practices, the spring game, what you gathered from the other big scrimmages, what hit you as being the big storylines for Georgia football in the spring?
Well, we got hit with a bit of an injury bug with losing Divide Wilson and Mark Webb in the secondary to two knee injuries. However, Mark Webb should be back probably towards the middle of fall camp, hopefully. His was just a slight meniscus issue, but Divide Wilson, he's still kind of up in the air. It was an ACL tear for him. Probably the biggest storyline, which people are thinking would be the quarterback battle, but I don't really think that it's much of a quarterback battle. I think Fromm secured his job very much so at the G-Day game, and along with the entire spring. He just looks like a complete quarterback, and he looks like he's ready to continue his leadership. Kirby Smart made it known to tell the media that the secondary and the defensive line are lacking in depth. But I'm not sure if that's just him calling out people, or that, and especially with the secondary telling them that they're not ready. Like, he's like genuinely concerned about the secondary. But then at G-Day, they just kind of came out and exploded. So I don't know if it was a little more of a, hey guys, step it up, I'm telling the media this and making you look bad, or if he's genuinely concerned. Overall, the spring went very smoothly. I thought that despite all the circling questions, losing Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, Bellamy, and Lorenzo Carter and all them, like, we would have some holes and stuff, but a lot of the young guys seem to have stepped up a good bit, and it's going to be an exciting fall camp.
Yeah, so if we talk the quarterback situation, Jake Fromm did a very commendable job as a freshman last season. When he was counted upon, when he finally had to make plays, he pulled through. That was the question much of the season. Yeah, this guy's playing well, but he's got such a strong defense and supporting cast and running game. He rarely has to throw under pressure, under duress, pull out the big plays. But he did, most notably against Oklahoma, showed us that. I've got somebody on here, Big Poppy JT, who is just driving us nuts here with Justin Fields talk. He wants to hear about Justin Fields. Give us anything you've got. He seems to be, based on all the reports I hear coming out of spring practice, he's the real deal, and he showed that #1 quarterback ranking was justified.
It's definitely justified. He's an incredible athlete. He's a freak. He just has the build, the mold. He comes in very cool, calm, and collected. He really didn't get rattled much. However, what a lot of people don't realize is who he was playing against G-Day wise. Jake Fromm was going up against probably what will be the best defense in the SEC. As Justin Fields looks at it, he's playing against, now I don't want to sit here and say scrubs, but he's playing against the second and the third string and the guys that need a push to improve themselves. And especially that secondary, there was only, I think, 1 or 2 guys in that secondary that had seen a college football playing field last season at all, and that was Ameer Speed. And so I think that he did a great job. He showed so much talent in spring. He's got an arm. That's the first thing that I noticed about him on day 2 or 3 of spring camp. Is kid's not just a leg guy who can tuck it and run. He can chunk it just as far, if not farther, than Jake Fromm. But again, like in G-Day, he had some great targets to throw to with J.J. Hallman and Matt Landers, and they exposed the back end of the secondary. But a lot of fans don't realize that the talent difference in the second string secondary and the first string secondary is good margin, a little difference. I've had quite a few debates on the recruiting board on Bulldog Illustrated, along with some Facebook pages and stuff. And some people don't realize that, but at the same time, they did the exact same thing with Jake Fromm last year, because he was playing against the second and third string secondary and defense last year and won the G-Day game. So it's a similar situation as last year to this year, but Justin Fields is a phenomenal athlete. He's going to do great things. And I'm excited to see how he can grow this season, helping Jake Fromm being that backup guy. And I'm sitting here predicting it. Nothing has been set in stone, but I think Jake Fromm has secured his job.
Yeah, we should all understand that there's few things that get clickbait in college football like a good quarterback battle, especially for one of the teams that are contending for a national championship, and especially with the #1 quarterback in the country coming out of high school involved. So not a whole lot of talk to talk about at this time of year, unless, of course, you're watching Mark Rogers TV, where we analyze everything to death and talk about schedules and are going to rank all the teams and everything. But I think that's more clickbait. It's not much of a quarterback battle right now. You have to think, though, Savannah, that they're going to get Justin Fields on the field in certain spots this year, get certain game situations, plays, and sets ready for him to excel and get his feet wet.
Oh, without a doubt. I expect him to see the field plenty this season, especially against Austin Peay. And I think it's, I can't think of the other kind of cupcake game that Georgia has later in the season. But I do expect him. I think we're going to see him along with some RPOs and some quarterback reads and just various things just to get his feet wet, to not just throw him out there whenever Jake Fromm leaves and be like, all right, well, good luck. I think he's too talented to leave on the sideline. It's kind of hard not to put him in. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see what Coach Coley and Coach Chaney decide to do with him this season. I expect to see probably tucking in and running, because he did a tremendous job doing that against the defense at G-Day. He made some good reads. But I also think we might get to see some long balls from him too, because you got Matt Landers and Tommy Bush, who are 6'4", 6'5" guys that just have some nice sets of hands that I'm excited to get to fall camp and see where they are and stuff. But yeah, Justin Fields will play, but he won't start.
So we've got a number of folks on the line with their comments and questions for Georgia football. Savannah Lee Richardson joining us from Bulldog Illustrated. So I'm going to try to tackle these and some of them general, some very specific.
Let's do it.
In particular, Big Poppy JT asking about Ameer Speed, defensive back out of Jacksonville. You familiar with him?
I am. Ameer Speed is a big-bodied secondary guy. I think this season he's got a great opportunity to come in and compete for some playing time. I think he's got the physical aspect of it. However, I think the biggest issue with Ameer is learning the playbook and getting that mental aspect and getting out there in front of 93,000 people every Saturday and putting it all together and not having a mishap here or there. I fully expect him to get a lot more playing time this season. However, I think he'll probably making more of an impact next year. Getting another full season under his belt, it will do him good wonders. He's so fast, though, and that's what's scary. He's like 6'1", 6'2", so he's really tall. He's got a thick body, but he's quick on his feet, too. His name mimics his style. That was kind of cheap.
Good name. You love when the name is a good play on words for that particular athlete. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, Savannah, you did mention a few minutes ago, and I let it slide, that Georgia has the best defense in the SEC. So we're going to be able to back that up here this season.
I think so. I think despite losing, like I said, Lorenzo and Davin and John Atkins, Dominic Sanders and company, I think that Georgia's bringing in is just as much talent, if not probably more talented than the defense was last year. I remember sitting on the sideline pregame with my boss. I don't remember exactly what game it was last year, but we overheard a TV person being like, this will be the worst defense we'll see in the next 5 years from Georgia. And I think that's the true testament right there, because you have Tyler Clark, Jonathan Ledbetter, DeAndre Walker as a linebacker, Monty Rice, who's coming in and looking at that Mike place where Lord, Roquan Smith was. And then you also have Natrez Patrick.
How soon they forget.
I know. It's just like, Lord, I have probably said his name 1,000 times. And of course, this one time is going to slip up. But I think they've gotten guys that had playing time last year, but were behind the leaders. And the biggest thing that will help the success for this team is finding those leaders this year who are going to be vocal and who are going to be able to help lead the defense while they're on the field. The talent's there. It's just going to be finding the guys that are going to step up and be the ones that we need to do what Lorenzo and company did last year.
Savannah Lee Richardson from Bulldog Illustrated talking up the Dogs here on Mark Rogers TV. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel for the very best in college football coverage. And I know that there's a ton more people that could be subscribing, because sometimes I'll go into the analytics and I got, let's say, 1,000 views on a video and only like 50 of those people subscribe. So if you love college football, I don't know why you just watch the videos and don't subscribe. Please subscribe and give me your likes and your comments. And if you don't like something, please argue with me, and it spurs on a little discussion and debate. We love that too.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Savannah, tight ends. Ryan Mell, our guy Ryan, is asking about Georgia tight ends.
Ooh, probably one of the most talented group of tight ends in the SEC. And, of course, I'm going to say that being a Georgia writer, but you have Isaac Nauta, former five-star, and then you're also bringing in Luke Ford and John Fitzpatrick, one of the top tight ends for 2018, with Luke Ford along with Fitzpatrick. These guys are huge. I saw them at G-Day on the sideline, and I'm a pretty tall girl. Like, I'm 5'9", almost 5'10", and I felt small. They're thick-bodied. I'm excited to see what they do. Luke Ford needed a little bit of work on his route running, so I'm excited to see what Chaney and them can do considering that. But I think it's Isaac Nauta's time. He kind of cruised last season. Of course, you know, everybody says, oh, they didn't throw enough to the tight ends and stuff, but I think we're going to see that a lot more. I mean, you got Coley coming in, who has a really big respect for them, along with Jim Chaney, who is now the tight ends coach and co-offensive coordinator, because Coley took over at quarterbacks. So I think that the tight ends are going to get a heck of a lot more looks. And you also have Jackson Harris, who could come in and make a big deal. And I can't forget about Charlie Warner, you know, the Georgia legacy. I knew I was probably going to get some comments if I didn't mention him, but Georgia's stacked. Either way you look at it, it's going to be an exciting position to watch for fall camp. Isaac Nauta must step up. I'm a big Isaac Nauta fan. I have watched him since he was a freshman in high school at Buford, but he has got to step up. I mean, he just cruised last year. I think he's got so much more throttle, so much more grit, and so much more power that he could be using. And so that's one of my biggest expectations this for fall camp, is seeing him explode onto the scene.
Mark Rogers TV talking Georgia football with Bulldog Illustrated's Savannah Lee Richardson. Ray LaRusso asking about the pretty weak schedule. So this is what I don't like. So I had a couple of video released just in the last few days, Savannah, where I looked at the future schedules for everybody in the SEC and actually all the Power 5 conferences. And when I looked at Georgia's not afraid to play anyone. They go out there, they schedule the likes of Notre Dame, and they've got some really exciting series coming up with the likes of UCLA and others. But this particular season, and the other thing I respect about that, coming from Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, and South Carolina, is that you always have the other Power 5 game that you have to play against your rival. So you always play Georgia Tech, and then when you add on another Power 5 game against a Notre Dame, UCLA, or somebody else, that makes for an extremely tough schedule, but not this year. You didn't do that this year, so I'm not crazy about the schedule.
I'm not crazy about the schedule either, but I get the point of it. I think you have those two easier games in there, and to kind of soften the blow and hopefully get two good, easy wins to show the playoff committee that we can destroy sub-level opponents. However, I think that a lot of people will be surprised with South Carolina's that game too. I think it's going to be a lot more close than people are going to give it credit to. If Georgia gets ahead in the first half, then I don't think that South Carolina has the depth yet to come back and really do anything. But if they let South Carolina stick around, it's going to be a ball game until the last few minutes of the game. However, I think Georgia's depth is just what's going to help them the most with their schedule. I agree, it's really weak. I mean, going to LSU might cause some havoc, but then you're getting Tennessee at home, you got Vandy at home, Auburn at home, and that to me is just like an awesome home for fans to be able to come in and see. But yeah, I'm probably one of the few UGA riders that want this Clemson-Georgia rivalry to happen, because I firmly believe that Georgia and Clemson will be the two teams the next 5 to 7 years, if not longer. And why not throw it at the beginning of the season? Let them go head to head every year, and let them meet again in the playoff. People are so worried that if whoever loses is they're gonna get knocked out. Not if you play it or you schedule it strategically enough. I don't like Alabama's schedule. If we're really going to talk about schedules, Alabama has coasted and had some of the easiest schedules the last few years, and look what they've done with it. You know what? Easy schedule. That means Georgia should be in the SEC championship come December, and then the college football playoff. So, but I like.
Yeah, if I'm Georgia, I've got the Georgia Tech game. I've got 3 other games to schedule. I'm scheduling 2 softies, so I have no issue with 2 FCS or 2 Group of 5 type games. Great. You can't beat yourself up every week. You play in the SEC. 2 softies, Georgia Tech, and then you go out and you grab, Clemson would be a great series. And we just saw that about 5 years ago, a home and home, 2 really good games against Clemson. And I'd be out there scheduling Texas and Penn State and Ohio State and whoever else that's a marquee matchup for me. And like you say, if you're Georgia and you win the SEC, you can lose that other game, and it's not going to cost you, as what we've seen based on the first 4 seasons of the college football playoff. So what Georgia has is, as you mentioned, the out-of-division schedule is extremely tough. They don't have Alabama, but they've got LSU and Auburn, probably the second and third best teams in the division. So it's a very difficult non-division schedule. You're talking about 2 teams that went 7-1 and 6-2 in the SEC last year. But yeah, Austin P., you mentioned the very important game against South Carolina right out of the gate. Game 2, September 8th, Middle Tennessee, and then the tune-up for the Georgia Tech game is UMass late in the season. So you get the 3 softies in Georgia Tech, but tougher schedules to come in 2019 and beyond. Well, let's see. Ryan says we need to play Justin Fields in the Austin P game, if nothing else, then to make South Carolina prepare for him. It's an interesting thought there.
It is an interesting thought, but I mean, Will Muschamp is a lot smarter than that. Will Muschamp knows better. Will Muschamp and Kirby Smart are good friends. I mean, they know each other like the back of each other's hands. That's going to be probably one of the best, as long as Will Muschamp keeps the job at South Carolina, some of the best state and state rivalries right there, because Will Muschamp's cutthroat. He's going to come after the jugular every time, especially against Georgia.
Yeah, so what Will Muschamp has showed us in this job, we knew he was one of the best defensive coordinators and minds in the country. He's turning into a head coach. He's learned what he let go at Florida, what he was not able to manage as a CEO of a program. He's a guy that's always going to be hands-on on the field, really dealing with the nuts and bolts and the X's and O's, but he obviously has to manage the entire program as well. So it's a balancing act, and he's doing it well at South Carolina. 3 wins, then 6, then 9. We'll see what happens in the next few years. It could be interesting. So, Savannah, we've got Cash Boy D, and we got Dennis Wilson asking about Elijah Holyfield and also Malcolm Parrish. Your thoughts about those 2 guys?
Malcolm Parrish is gone. Malcolm Parrish is gone. But Elijah Holyfield, let me tell you, Mark, Elijah Holyfield has been a topic of discussion for Bulldog Illustrated, all these Facebook pages, and I have gotten destroyed because of my opinion. However, I think Elijah Holyfield has an ample opportunity to just take control this season and do what he wants to do. But in my opinion, I don't think he will. I think he's happy with what he's doing as the cleanup guy, getting, those 6 or 7 carries a game, averaging 6 or 7 yards, getting those big bursts of runs. But he has the capabilities to be a starter. He would be a starter anywhere else in the SEC. But at Georgia, you have better backs in front of him. I've had people tell me that they're not sure about what Swift's going to be able to do as a premier back. Swift came in as a freshman and challenged Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. If he would have gotten 5 or 6 handoffs more a game, Georgia would have had 3 running backs with 1,000+ yards. He is explosive. He is instinctive. And for anybody to think that Swift is not going to be that premier back, I'm sorry, but he is. And then you also have folks exiling Zamir White because he got hurt. I'm going to tell you right now, Mark, that injury is not near severe. So Elijah Holyfield has to really come in and compete his tail off if he wants to get that number 2 spot. My biggest thing is he hasn't shown me anything to change that opinion of him being that cleanup guy. I mean, I see him downtown Athens, enjoying it, having a good time. He's of age. That's fine. Everybody needs to have a beer every now and then. And then another thing people tell me all the time is, oh, my God, but he's so big. His arms are so big. I'm like, that doesn't make a great running back, though. He has the dedication in the gym because look at him. He's cut up. He's cut up from head to toe. It's just there's some disconnect. I'm not sure if it was, the old weed charge or what, but he's not doing what he did, because if he's as good as everybody says he is, he would have came in and competed against Nick Chubb and Sony Michel and tried to earn that number 3 spot. But he got beat out by Swift because Swift outworked him. I'm sure I'm going to get loads and loads of comments about this, but until Elijah Holyfield shows me he can do something against a first-string defense, because he couldn't do anything against our first-string defense at G-Day, and people say, oh, it was the O-line. The O-line played fine. Yeah, we still have some missing pieces there working too, but the thing about it is Georgia has one of the best, if not the best, 7 front, but you also got to play against Auburn. Kentucky has a big defensive front. LSU's got a big defensive front. And he didn't do anything for me to impress me. So until he does, my opinion will stay the same, and he'll be the 3rd or 4th string running back.
You got a couple amens here. And you know that I love the strong take. So you can always bring the strong take here, because I know that you've done your homework to back it up. So that's a good thing. We're kind of running out of time, unfortunately, because there's a ton of questions and comments here to get to, and I'm not going to get to anywhere close to the good ones, but there's one that at the portion that I'm at here in the chat from Ryan Mell. Again, he's asking about transfers, a bit concerned with all the transfers.
I don't think it's a really big concern. I think this is my whole synopsis about the situation. Coach Smart came in, probably sat down the entire team, and now this is all in my head. This is not fact. This is me contemplating, thinking, and just throwing my opinion out there. I think they had a meeting, and they say, you have 2 years to really prove to us that you can make an impact on this team, that you can compete for the 1st and 2nd string positions, or we will find a better place for you. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of these players, Jaleel Loggins and Pat Allen and Chris Barnes. They're in position groups that are so stacked talently. It's almost unfair for some of these kids not to transfer out, because they would never get the opportunity to really prove how good they are. I think Jaleel Loggins is a heck of a player, and I think he could do great things. It could do great things at wherever he goes, along with Pat Allen and Chris Barnes. There's just better talent at Georgia. You are cutting numbers. You are trying to hit that 85 mark, and you are trying to look ahead for the 2019 class too. So I think transfers are going to happen until Kirby Smart gets all of the personnel of his own in there, and he knows the guys that he's bringing in are going to come in, compete for these spots where you won't see near as many transfers. But then you also have guys that are medically not going to be there anymore, with the offensive lineman, Sam Madden, who has some medical issues there. I'm not sure about Michael Chigbu, but Coach Smart did say that he is thinking about stepping down from football. And then also Marshall Long, the punter, just had his 3rd knee surgery. So there are some other things that are happening to scholarship guys that are just out of their control with the injuries and stuff. But I mean, I expect a transfer to happen. Big time expecting it. But that's just we're trying to make numbers. But he's also trying to give other people who are transferring the best opportunity to be able to get playing time and to be able to get to that next level in the NFL.
So there's no way to get to all these comments. We could bring you back on and certainly get through all the questions and comments. I'll say that some people are having fun talking about Drew Lock going to rip up your secondary this season.
I like to see that happen. I mean, you got DeAndre Baker, probably one of the best secondary players in the entire country. He didn't do anything against DeAndre Baker last season. And then you also have Tyson Campbell coming in, Joseph Nabad, I think that's how you say his name. There's so many guys, talented guys. Richard LeCount. Richard LeCount is ready to go. He is probably the most amped up guy in the secondary. It's funny. Kirby calls him like a bouncy guy. He bounces around. You got to like tone him down. And that's one of the biggest things with Richard is toning him down and getting him molded into being the great D-back that he could be. And then you also have J.R. Reed, probably one of the smartest secondary players in the entire country. You got two of them right there with DeAndre Baker and J.R. Reed. I mean, there's probably going to be some hiccups here and there, but by the time we get to Missouri, I think it's just going to be chug-a-lug. You're going to have to stop Natrez Patrick, Tyler Clark, Jonathan Ledbetter, DeAndre Walker from getting to Mr. Drew Lock before you have to really worry about him getting to the secondary. But I like answering.
In a parting shot from Dennis Wilson talking about Mark Richt coming into Georgia stealing all the best recruits. I don't know what that has to do with anything.
Recruits have he stolen out of the state of Georgia? Because didn't we go in and steal Tyson Campbell from South Florida last season?
Exactly. That was an easy one for you to have you finish it off.
I like answering questions.
Savannah Lee Richardson in fine form tonight from Bulldog Illustrated, taking your comments and questions. I wish we could keep it going, but we've got to move along and let Savannah, I don't know, get back to the pool or whatever her plans are for the evening.
It's all recruiting now. I got to figure out who's coming this weekend and get some articles up.
All right, Savannah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.